They did it. I didn't think they were going to be able to do it, but they did it. The Creality K1 Max has officially replaced the Bambu Lab P1P as my current favorite 3D printer. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Frank and I have a sword. Now I don't. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about the new Creality K1 Max. A lot of you guys have been asking me for this review video ever since my Spider-Man mask tutorial video came out, and I've been so excited to talk about this printer because this video is going to be very different than my Creality K1 review. However, I do want to clear something up regarding the Creality K1 review I just recently did. A couple people seem to take that video as me just dumping on the K1 saying it was a bad printer. I never meant to really say it was a bad 3D printer. I was just trying to convey that for the price point, the Bambu P1P was a better buy. That was the point of that video. If you're going to be spending the money on something like the K1, don't get the P1P instead because it's just a better all-around printer. Honestly, after that K1 review video, I didn't have great expectations for this printer. I thought it was going to be just as much of a headache. I didn't think it was going to possibly be able to redeem itself just by being bigger, and I was wrong. Now, the Creality K1's bed is rather small. It can't really be used for large cosplay and props, and if you're watching me in this review video, that's probably what you're trying to do with this thing. It's a good printer, it's great for small things and accessories, and I've gotten some beautiful prints off of the K1, but the K1 Max is just a little bit of a smidgen bigger, sitting at 300 by 300 by 300. What that means is you can do things like full-size helmets and larger parts in one shot on a high-speed 3D printer. This is it, guys. This is what we've been waiting for. This is what I've been waiting for ever since the introduction of the X1 Carbon and the P1P, and then Creality fired back with the K1. We've just been waiting for a large, high-speed 3D printer where you can do big stuff on. Neat. So fun fact, if you just recently saw that Spider-Man video I did, you'll know that I was trying to extract the best possible quality from the P1P and the K1 Max to make a really nice smooth printed helmet. Well, for that, I wasn't going for speed. I wanted the best print possible, so I was okay taking my time with the prints. But ever since that video, I now wanted to see just how quick could I print a helmet. And you guys are gonna be real surprised when you find out how long this helmet took compared to the original helmets in that video. But we're gonna talk about that later. So sitting at about $900 and maybe $850 if you know where to look, it takes up about the size of a, modern microwave. It is a large footprint, but what you see is what you get. You don't really need any more room than what's sitting here on the table. The only annoyance with printers like these is usually the filament is loaded onto the back of it, so you do need a way to reach around behind it, swap the filament out and do that. But honestly, once you do it a couple times, you can kind of do it blind. I found myself doing that in my garage on the shelves. I would just have to reach behind it, do the extrude or retract the filament, pull it out, grab the roll, swap it, feed it back in. It's pretty easy to do. It doesn't come with much because it doesn't really need much. It comes with everything you see here. It comes with a really awesome little glass top that if you're gonna be using the heated chamber for things like ABS and other certain materials, you can just throw on top of it. But if you're gonna be printing in PLA or easier materials, you're not gonna really need this thing. Though it does help with the noise, and we will talk about that later. While actually filming the K1 review video, this showed up while I was at the end of filming, and I didn't unbox it and I was very excited, but I did take this immediately out of its box, put it somewhere on the floor over here, and I just started sending prints to it. I didn't do any calibration, I didn't do any assembly or building, I didn't even send any test prints. I just put this thing to work immediately. Now, before you leave the comment down below, I know that some other review videos out there are different. I don't care. This is my experience with this printer, and I haven't had any problems with it that haven't been my own. There has been one small little snafu with it, haven't been able to repeat it, and it hasn't happened since, but it did lead to one failed print. Halfway through printing a Spider-Man mask, everything was going solid, and the printer just kind of stopped and had a very weird error message. Since then, the firmware has been updated. I didn't update the firmware because of that. It just gave me a prompt saying, hey, update me, and it hasn't happened since, so I'm not really sure what happened there, but I'm not really gonna troubleshoot something that only happened one time and has yet to repeat. And actually, it gave me a really cool Spider-Man mask that, I don't know, I might do something with. The type of setup I had to go through with this printer is exactly what we're gonna start seeing, or at least should start seeing, in the future of 3D printing. You get it out of the box, you throw it on the table, you plug it in, it does its own little calibration thing, and you can start printing. No mess. Not only does this make it easier for people who have been in the hobby for a long time, who've had to struggle with bed leveling and assembly and all this calibration, it also lets more people enter the hobby with less headache and frustration, and why wouldn't you want that for people? It's very well built, and the actual simplistic assembly of it compared to something like the X1 Carbon makes repairs on it very easily. There are gonna be things that are gonna wear down over time, certain belts and rollers, so you're gonna need to do some type of maintenance on it eventually, but all of the components are either in the hot end or underneath it, and they're all very easily accessible. But before we get any farther, let's talk about what you get on the printer. It has a mixture of glass components and plastic casings. It has a very, very easy to use hot end. I do like the little lever system it has at the top to load and unload the filament. It makes it a lot easier to do it manually instead of having to wait for the extrude and retract feature in the user interface, though it is easy to use. The fans, plugs, connectors, hot end are all very well laid out, and you do have a very nice AI camera sitting right over here to monitor the print. And the connectivity I had with that camera to Creality Print, to the actual slicing software to monitor the prints, was great. It gets really good time lapses, and they're all easy to sort through and just follow. But we'll talk about Creality Print a little bit later, because I do have quarrels with that program, but we'll get there. Now, you've got the printer, you've set it up, maybe you sent some of the little test prints that are preloaded on the USB stick or on the files. The one pitfall you're gonna have with this printer is actually Creality Print, the slicing software that you're supposed to use with this printer. Now, it does work very well, and I do like the user interface of it. It is one of the better laid out slicing programs because it's kind of just a copy of Bambu Labs, which is kind of just a copy of another slicer program from Prusa. Everybody's stealing from anybody. It's fine. It's just for the benefit of us. For simplistic models, I really didn't have any problem slicing anything. However, when I started to do more complex models, and I talked about this in the Spider-Man video too, high polygon count 3D models, when I started trying to use stuff like tree support and really doing my own crazy custom settings and slicing it, the program would just quit and crash. It wouldn't even freeze or bog down. It would just nope itself out of existence. And that can be rather annoying, especially when you're trying to get work done. Creality definitely does need to update that program and keep working on it, because I don't really have that problem with Bambu Lab or even Cura. I just not sure why it's doing that, and it is kind of annoying. These are 3 helmets that were printed off of this printer using various filaments. The white was a high-speed Creality filament. It came out perfect. This was a red Sunlu, and this was a black eSun filament, and they all printed the same. And when I say they printed the same, I mean beautifully. There are almost no flaws with these, and these were all printed in 25, 26 hours for a full helmet on a high quality setting. That's so awesome. And they all came out consistent and good. And like I was saying before, I actually started to test out not just the quality of the printer, but the speed. How much quicker could I print these helmets before I noticed a drop in quality? Now, these were printed at around 300 millimeters a second. Sometimes they drop to 250, sometimes they go up to 400, depending on the part of the print they're doing. And that's all for the slicing program to figure out too. But I took the first print up to 400 millimeters a second, and it came out exactly the same. Now, because of the discrepancy with the tree supports I was having earlier, and the fact that this is a high poly count model, there's a lot of overhangs on it, I had to go through and do some custom supports, but I was able to get this print initially down from 26 hours to what these ones were. I was able to get this down to 20 hours. And just like all the prints before it, the supports just fall off. This is the most satisfying part of probably 3D printing for me right now, is support removal, and typically it's the most dreaded part. But look, these are just falling off. This is incredible. There's a 6-hour difference in the print quality of this helmet, though this one's a little bit lighter to save on infill. They look pretty much exactly the same. Then I decided to try to shave off even more time and bring it up to 500 millimeters a second. However, there are limiters built into the program. There's a lot more settings to mess with. It's not as simple as just upping the print speed, because it wants to do inner walls and outer walls and infill and all this other stuff at different speeds. So I was able to go from about 20 hours down to about 18 hours, and almost no difference at all. I do notice that the top layering around where the print finished is a little bit more noticeable on the 18-hour print than it was on the 20-hour print, but again, you're really not even gonna notice it unless I pointed it out to you. And then after sitting in Creality Print for another like half an hour trying to figure out every other setting to adjust and change, I was able to get one final helmet down to 16 and a half hours, almost 16 hours and 45 minutes. And again, No quality drop at all. This was printed at approximately 500 millimeters a second on the average print speed, not the entire, every single motion was 500. I think the printer would have lost its mind, but I was trying to just increase the speed as much as possible. Aside from some stringing on the newer printed helmet, because I just never take care of my filaments and I leave them out in the open all the time and it's kind of humid in North Carolina, almost a 10-hour difference in print time, and there is no discernible quality drop in these helmets at all. I'm not sad that this took 25 hours, I'm just more blown away that this one came out even quicker and they look the same. And just like the previous two, God, I love that. But for comparison, I have this black helmet printed on the K1 Max, and I also sent the exact same file with the exact same filament on the P1P, and this one took about 20 hours, but you also can notice how I needed to position this. I'm limited to the size of the P1P. Though it can do full helmets, I still need to be very careful with how I position it. And of course, just like you'd expect from the P1P, this printed beautifully too. Supports just kind of fall off. Honestly, they come off a little bit easier than the K1, but it's apples to oranges at that point. They're still breaking off beautifully on both prints. But if I put these two prints next to each other, and honestly, if it wasn't for just a little bit of stringing on the K1, again, from the way I was storing the filament, the P1P got a brand new, fresh open pack, where this was an old roll of filament. I wouldn't even know which one is which. The only thing that gives it away for me is where the top layer is inside. That's the only way I'm able to tell these prints apart. They look the same. Guys, if you made it this far in the video, I think you already pretty much get the point of what I'm getting at. This printer is amazing, and it's quickly become my favorite printer that I use in the garage. I've printed a bunch of other little small stuff that's gone out to a few people already, but it just has that out-of-box consistency, reliability. It has a beautiful build volume and space. It's a good quality, and if you're new to 3D printing and you get this, you will not be disappointed. And if you've been 3D printing for years and you get this, you will not be disappointed. The only con to it is what I was talking about in a previous video about the future of 3D printing and how these printers are just getting a lot louder. For high-speed printing comes high-speed cooling, and this thing has like 1 billion fans on it, and it just kind of sounds like a jet engine sitting in the corner. So this absolutely isn't a printer I would just have on the shelf over there while I'm trying to film a review video. I might not even have it in the direct next room. It's going to be loud, but if you want fast printing, that is going to be the compromise for this. You're melting plastic and you need to cool it down quick. Well, you're gonna need to move a lot of air for that. But I don't think I need to go on any more about this printer. You get it, I like it, it's good. It can do a helmet or more a day, which is just incredible. And I'm very excited to use this to print my new Mark 85 suit, which is coming up real soon here. And I cannot wait to start this. This is going to shave weeks off of my printing time. I can't wait. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns about anything I talked about in this video, leave a comment down below. I read all of them, and I will do my best to respond to as many as possible. I do need to say thank you to Creality for sending me this printer to review. They've been putting out some questionable stuff lately, and we all know how they are with customer service and feedback and community involvement. But if they can keep putting out machines like this, and this is the direction they're going, I think we're off to a very good restart to just their whole image and how everything's been looking for them. So yeah, please, more of these. But that's gonna be a wrap for this video, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. You have a good day.